Hello, and welcome back to the In Due Season podcast. This is Amber Smith, and today I want to talk to you about homeschooling high school. Now, let's agree by the end of this podcast that homeschooling high school is nothing to fear. When I first became a homeschooler, I knew that I wanted to homeschool all the way through to the end. And I think that's a huge part of my success in being able to homeschool my students all the way to graduation was determining from the very beginning that that was a goal I had for myself and my family. Now, if you're homeschooling to get through a problem area, if you're homeschooling because of a behavioral issue, if you're homeschooling because your situation in life makes homeschooling the most accessible way to get the best education for your child, and homeschooling through high school is not your goal, then I'm not talking to you. But I do have some tips and wisdom that can help you be successful in every area you are right now. Now, homeschooling high school is the biggest area when I talk to parents that they have fear and intimidation. Now, most of this stems from their own high school experience. Even though I successfully homeschooled 3 of my kids all the way through to high school graduation, I was not a successful high school student. In fact, I know I share about homeschooling and education, and I'm an advocate for your kids to get the best education they can, so it might surprise you that I'm actually a high school dropout. I completed half of my sophomore year in public high school before my mother removed me to join the rest of my siblings homeschooling. I won't say that I was homeschooled voluntarily. And I won't say that it was a decision my mother took lightly, but I will say it was the best choice she ever made for me in all of my life. If you're looking at removing a child from public school because of behavioral issues, because of conflicts, because of grades, I know it's an intimidating idea and you feel like you're taking on the world. But I'm telling you right now, your first priority is the health and wellness of your child. And if you're willing to put your fears aside, I'm telling you, you can change your son or daughter's life for the better. Now let's talk about the things that intimidate us about high school. First is definitely our skill set. Now, like I said, I only went through my sophomore year in high school. I didn't take any of the classes that most people would take, upper level maths and whatnot. So I could be worried that my education would be quickly eclipsed by my children's abilities. What I will tell you is that homeschooling materials are made for parents as teachers. You can learn right along with your student, if you so desire. You can go through every step one by one with them. I tell you, I've learned more about algebra in the 3 years I had to take it with my homeschool children than in the 1 year I took it in high school. Another area I've learned a ton is in history. I think I've enjoyed this learning process more as an adult than I ever appreciated in high school. And I feel like sometimes that translates to our children and an appreciation for their education. I will say this as well. Some of the high school materials are made for your child to learn independently. 3 of my students took Latin, enough to have it on their high school and college entrance transcripts. Now, I don't know any Latin. The materials I used were completely self-taught. Now, it was clear enough and easy enough to use that I was always able to find the answers if they weren't sure about a problem. This is how I explained it to my kids. When they were frustrated and would come to me saying that their answer wasn't in the book, I gently explained to them that publishers made this book so that they could use it. Here's the problem. If they can't find the answer and I can't find the answer, parents are going to be frustrated. What they're going to do is complain to the publisher and return the book. Publishers don't want that to happen. So they make their materials very clear. They may be academically difficult, but the text itself is easy to follow and the answers are always available. I want to encourage you that the tools created for homeschool parents are made to make teaching easier. Really, we're giving the tools that teachers are using in the public school and beyond, and tools are being developed for us every day. The homeschool market is a huge market, and people are taking notice of the ability to get tools and materials into the hands of homeschoolers is a great way to serve our community. Now, I will say this, sometimes the fear is the fear of your children repeating your past history in their high school results. Now, the most important thing I can tell you, when people ask me what my best parenting advice is, I always tell them, work through your past issues. I am so thankful that I've had time to work with professionals about issues in my past so that I didn't project those onto my children. Oftentimes, our greatest fears come from our greatest failures. Now, the teen years are hard, and so many of us maybe made poor decisions or were left on our own. Those things resulted in pains and hurts that we carry into adulthood. They affect every one of our relationships, and the greatest place they affect us is in our children. Oftentimes, our fear that they are going to repeat the same mistakes we did cause us to react in ways that are overblown and unfair to our kids. The most important thing we can do as a parent is work through our personal issues in our heart so that we can come to them with an honest and clean intention for their best well-being. Another fear people have is that they're not equipped. But I'm telling you, this is an area you can overcome easily. You can take a class on any subject in the world by just a click of a button. I've taken classes on foreign languages. I've taken short courses on understanding mathematics. I've taken courses with my children. There's no limitation to the materials that you can learn or relearn if you need access to them. The point of homeschooling high school is to create a better experience than maybe the one we had before. Or maybe you had a great high school experience. I know that my elementary education in the GATE program in California gave me a huge foundation to how I wanted my homeschool to look when I developed it with my family. That was hands-on learning, was experimenting and learning about different cultures and places in a way that was broad and full. You can create the kind of experience you want, and you do not have to recreate the public school setting. Like I've said in previous podcast episodes, I despise textbooks. I find them depressing and boring and uninspiring. I'm not insulting anybody who thinks a textbook is a great way to go through the materials systematically. It's just not my persona. So when I created a homeschool, I wanted to work with living books. I wanted to read great stories and continue on with an education in areas maybe that we were interested in. Giving us the flexibility kept me excited about our homeschool. So when you think about homeschooling high school, don't think about recreating a boring and arduous classroom setting. Think about what kind of learning inspires you and recreate that in your education model. Now, there are opportunities that are unique to homeschoolers. You don't have to be set in the middle of four walls. You're not required to a timetable or a certain subject matter. As long as you're covering your state-required core subjects, then you are free to explore any sorts of subjects that you want to beyond that. There is absolutely no limitation. Not only can you explore what your child is interested in, but you can explore your own interests and inspire your children as well. This is an area that I experienced myself in our homeschool. My daughter was interested in writing, and I wanted to show her that you could dig in deeper and make your writing something that mattered. So I started a blog. I wanted to show her that we could develop our tools into things that people could actually use. So I continued my writing experience and brought her alongside to see what I did. Maybe you're an entrepreneurial parent. Maybe you have a creative spark and something that you're interested in that you're doing in your real life. There is no reason that you can't make that a huge part of your child's education. When I did go on to college to get my associate's degree in graphic design, the best thing about my course was most of my teachers were active members of the design community. The core value in bringing those people to teach us was that they could show their work and an understanding of what was going on in the industry. Think about that same thing as a homeschool parent. You're bringing what you know to the table in terms of teaching your own child. You have a lot to offer. Do not underestimate your skill sets. Now, also, I want you to remember we're teaching high school with graduation in mind. I see a lot of homeschoolers not keep this as their central core value. There's an education requirement that we should hold a standard to. When my kids didn't want to do math, or when my kids didn't want to do upper level science, I had to remind them that when they choose to drop off and not do the harder materials, they're limiting their future. My job as a parent is to make sure they're prepared for their heart's desires. As much as I can do so, I want to inspire my kids to know that by getting the education they can, they're opening doors to opportunities that they have yet unforeseen. But when those opportunities come, I want you and your child to be prepared to accept those with open arms. That means that we're going to homeschool through high school with a graduation in mind. I like to break down the graduation requirements, or better yet, choose a college in your area that your child may be inspired to go to. I go directly to their website and pull off their requirements for entrance. All of my children have known from the beginning what they need to do to graduate. I think it's important to give a child a finish line and keep it in front of their sight. With the entrance requirements from our local college, our children know what credits they need to accomplish to enter college or to finish for graduation. With that in the forefront of their mind, we're able to accomplish our goals knowing that we're not just wasting time. I think it's important that our children understand why we're doing specific things. If it's achieving a graduation requirement, it's if achieving a specific skill set. That's why I talked in the first issue about developing our goals for our independent students before we choose curriculum. If we all understand the direction we're going, it helps us work as a team to accomplish goals when the times are hard. And often, in homeschooling high school, there are difficult times. It's not easy to develop the character we need as an adult, and it's a lifelong process. The choice to homeschool all the way through high school to graduation is one we need to determine as parents first and foremost. I remember when I switched to a midwife, a friend had asked, what is the best way to have a drug-free home birth? Now, I'm not advocating everybody has a drug-free home birth. When I asked my midwife what was the biggest factor that she saw in people having a successful home birth without drugs, her answer surprised me. She said, decide you want to have one. That was the biggest factor. If you decided in your heart of hearts that you were going to do everything possible for yourself to have a drug-free birth, the likelihood of having a successful one was higher. Now, I'm not talking about labor and delivery. I'm talking about high school. If you determine now that your goal is to homeschool all the way through high school, the likelihood of succeeding is so much higher. I want you to really think about what things are causing you intimidation or fear about homeschooling at the high school level. Is it a lack of knowledge on your part? Is it a lack of understanding of the tools and materials that are available to you? I encourage you to look on my website at 200fingersandtoes.com, where there's a ton of reviews about different kinds of materials to fit every family. We've used everything from math textbooks to online learning. This year we've used online science, where we can see our experiments done on the computer. We've also used an interactive math. There are a ton of opportunities out there, and every learning style can be met. The more creative you are in solving the problems ahead of time, the more likely you are to have a successful school year. Now, don't get the idea that it's all rose gardens. Homeschooling high school has its low days. I'm not saying it doesn't. There are times when my kids don't want to get up. There are times when they stay up way too late. And I'm not going to lie, it's very hard to be the mom and the teacher and the chore taskmaster. There are days no one likes me. That's why I encourage you to find a community of people who love you very much. If your family is supportive, then lean on them for strength and encouragement. Keep your friends close to you and find a community of homeschoolers who has a cheerful disposition and who can bring you encouragement when you're feeling down. That was the greatest resource I had as a homeschool mom, was a best friend who could see the great things in my kids and would constantly remind me about what great children they were. Sometimes we need to be told when we're in the thick of it, and that's not the worst thing. Another thing we can do to help encourage our high schoolers is make sure we're including their interests as part of our education. If they have a hobby, are we making room for it? If they have a creative spark, are we feeding it? Make sure we're making the tools and resources available to them to explore hobbies, habits, interests, and different types of education models to find what fits them best. High school is a time of exploration. If we could keep that in mind, then we know that making a change isn't a failure in a curriculum or a failure in our choice. It's really narrowing down the things that are not successful tools for your student. I try to let my kids know finding out the thing you hate is the best way to find out what you love. If we continue to narrow down the things we don't like and the tools that don't work for us, we're much closer to finding things that make us successful in our workday. And that goes for our everyday life as well. This episode is brought to you by the In Due Season course, where you can build your roadmap for your own personalized homeschool journey. Listen, beginnings are great and planning for the end is satisfying, but the middle season of homeschooling can be a long and winding, uncharted road. I want to help ensure a strong finish by helping you live well in the middle. In Due Season is a course that helps you with practical lessons, life examples, and encouragement that will serve you from that anxious first day until the moment you walk your child down an aisle in a cap and gown, or send them back to public school because you've resolved the issues that you wanted to work on. Now, simple shifts in your school setup and challenging conversations is what the course is made of, specifically designed to have you get the very best outcome from your homeschooling year. The lessons cover relationship building, like showing love uniquely to your child, creating a school that fits your personal needs by helping you transform the way you approach teaching your children. I want you to create a personalized map that will last you your entire homeschool lifetime. So In Due Season course, where you can join us to explore several other vital and powerful truths that will ensure that this will be your best school year ever. My heart's desire is that you never lose sight of the end of the road in your homeschool journey. And we want to help ensure a strong finish by helping you live well in the middle. You can find out more about the In Due Season course at indueseason.net. Now, I think it's important to address our student personally in homeschooling high school. If your relationship is not where it should be, I encourage you to make that your most important goal in the education of your student. Yes, we want them to be academically successful. Yes, we want to push, and I have pushed my children to get their education at the highest level they're capable of, but not at the cost of our relationship. This is an area that I strive to keep at the forefront of our homeschool experience. And I feel like this is an area that sometimes gets ignored behind education. Education is important, and education is my top goal in homeschooling my kids. But I don't want to do it at the cost of our relationship. That means respecting them as my peers. Now, I'm always the parent. I'll make sure they do their chores, make sure they brush their teeth. But when I talk to them, I try to remember that these are my peers. I want to raise them so that one day we're shoulder to shoulder working in the world together. And keeping that attitude in mind helps me speak to them in a way that respects who they are as an individual. As a parent, the high school years are the transition to adulthood. And if we keep that in mind, we can do a better job of helping shape the adults that we want to deal with in the future. I hope this is encouraging to you as we talk about the idea of homeschooling high school. Maybe it's a new idea to you, and I want you to really chew on what things are causing you fear or intimidation in the thought of reaching the high school level with your children. Do you have deficits or areas that you feel like maybe you wouldn't be able to serve your children best? And what can you do to shore up those places now? Are there some courses you can take? Or do you need help in finding the materials that will do the teaching for you and you can work alongside your student to help them accomplish what they need? All of those are available to you, and I want to encourage you to reach out and share what your greatest fears are about teaching high school. I can lead you to the materials you need to help teach subjects, but your heart is the main thing that needs to be understood in how you can translate your fears into successes for your student. I encourage you to keep moving forward in your goals and learning about homeschooling your students. I encourage you to keep an open mind about homeschooling high school. It's nothing to fear, and I encourage you to explore the idea further. Next week, we'll talk about creating opportunities in the real world for fellowship and community while homeschooling. But for now, I thank you for listening. Please share this episode with somebody who maybe has talked about their fears of homeschooling high school, and I hope it encourages them as well. Like always, have a beautiful week, and I'll talk to you soon.